All right. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Monetizing Your Mental Capital. I'm your host, Will Christensen. I am super excited to be here with Serve Chumber today. Serve actually met the Seller Labs team and got a chance to chat with one of our team members, Josh. And Josh was like, this guy needs to be on the podcast. And so that's why Serve's here today.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Will. It's exciting to be connecting with you and diving into things a little bit deeper.
Beautiful. So, one of the things that I want to ask you is this: why would a seller who is looking to either start a brand, build a brand, or scale a brand be interested in talking or hearing from someone from you in this new season where we're talking about the nuggets in, how to actually do, starting, scaling, or building a brand from scratch?
That's an interesting question. I think there's a number of reasons, really. There's the way I view business and the way I just view life. There's theoretical and there's practical. People who have been in there, they've been in the trenches, and they've actually experienced a lot of what these brands are experiencing at the moment and had to find the right solution. I think I've been very, very fortunate that I've been in a position where I've seen it from a theoretical side and a practical side. When I look back to when our journey started on Amazon, back in 2007, we actually started as a brand, and it was with zero e-com experience, didn't even know how to create a listing, didn't know what a UPC was, real bare bones basic stuff. And, the way we were able to scale and build that brand, it was through a lot of learnings. And those learnings now we're able to share with brands who are basically experiencing that today. So a lot of what we do and a lot of what we actually work with our brands on are things that we've had to find solutions for throughout the last 15, 17 years of being in the e-commerce space and working in the agency space more so now. A lot of those learnings from when we were a brand and we were active on Amazon, they're still relevant. Yes, they're a little bit more complex. And that's where, being at the forefront on the agency side has really helped us stay at the forefront of that. But taking that information, taking those learnings, taking everything that we had to find a solution for and share it with brands who are in the same position that we were either 5 years ago or 10 years ago, or, dare I say 17 years ago when we first started out, that allows us to build a far, far deeper relationship with the clients and the brands that we're working with. So it's not all theory. It's not all, podcasts and reading books. It's things that we've had to genuinely find solutions for that are real world,
Beautiful. So, sir, my first question for you here as we kind of dig in and understand that. When was the first time you can remember? Because our whole podcast is about monetizing mental capital, right? And you can't monetize mental capital until you find mental capital that is repeatable. And so what we're identifying today is nuggets or repeatable monetized. So at this point, you actually get paid to have these nuggets. And our goal here is to find 3 nuggets that we can give away to the audience so that they can feel like, wow, I got a lot out of this episode, but also so that you can show off some of your expertise. And so I'm curious, when's the first time you can remember finding a nugget or a piece of mental capital that became, holy crap, that's repeatable? Can you remember that? Or like early on in your agency, or perhaps in your Amazon work as you ran into a buddy that was like, oh, I got that same problem. Well, let's try it. Yeah. And it worked.
Yeah, I think it was more so with, again, tying in what we're doing on the agency space and working in the agency space for the last number of years. And what we did very, very early on and how we were able to take our brand and grow out of the UK, expand into the US, expand into Europe, get into 28 marketplaces in 22 countries, within about 5 to 6 years, and finding huge success. That was for me then, okay, this is repeatable. The saying, rinse and repeat. We kind of experienced that when we took that first initial step out of the UK. Very, very daunting. You have to have a lot of courage to be able to do that. And any brand that's doing that more so today, it's a lot more complex, particularly now with the landscape here in the UK post-Brexit and how we're now starting to diverge slightly from mainland Europe, if I can call it that. That in itself, represents a lot of opportunity, a lot of complexity. And then when we first took that step back in 2013, and moved out from the UK into Amazon France, we listed a handful of products. Didn't really have a solution at that time. We used Google Translate. Yeah, dare I say it, we used Google Translate to translate our data. and get the listings up. And within about 3 months, we'd scaled to the same level that it'd taken us the previous 2 years in the UK. So I thought there's something to this.
Interesting. So, and what year was this?
This was, I said 2013, but looking back now, it was more around 2009. It was a couple of years into when we launched on the UK. We'd learned the platform, we'd understood how it all worked, how to create listings, the complexity of the algorithm for placement. Advertising didn't exist back then, so it was more about the quality and the content of your optimized content and how you can drive that traffic organically on Amazon. So the landscape's completely changed now. But when we took that and we thought, let's just test it on France. So we launched and we scaled very, very, very quickly. We got up to 100, 200 orders a day, daily. So about 3 or 4 months.
I'm actually curious, how relevant is this nugget now? As I'm sure this is something that you're still doing with your clients. It may have shifted over time. But let's imagine that I'm a new seller. I've got a few products that are doing okay over in the US marketplace or the UK marketplace or whatever marketplace I've started in. And I'm like, I think this might do well out there. One, how do I evaluate? Like, okay, yeah, I should take that out to expand into another marketplace. And then two, what are the first steps to actually do that? So let's start with that. How do you evaluate which products should be expanded?
I think when we look at Amazon and the way it's evolved and how it's grown just globally, and more so here in Europe as well, now that we're talking about Europe and UK, the number of customers who are actually shopping on Amazon and the Prime membership from a consumer standpoint has grown exponentially. That in itself gives you opportunity. So that there's always going to be opportunity. It's whether it's cost effective for you. So that's where you've got to really dive in and work with a partner who understands the market, who's got the capabilities to do market analysis and see whether the category of your products or your product-specific product type is going to be successful within the marketplace that you're looking at. That's where it first starts. There's no point coming in. Yeah. And the reason I say that is because there's a level of investment to be able to do it. There's a compliance here, which is so heavily regulated here in Europe compared to, compare it to the US, that there's a level of investment needed. There's certifications you need to get done. Then there's the investment in the translation. Yes, you can use translation software, but that's just literal translation. You need to be able to know what your customers are actually searching for and tie that into the market research and get marketplace specific SEO. And the only way you do that is to work with an agency like ourselves or our partners to be able to do that. So you're setting yourselves up for success. Once those numbers make sense, and you can then evaluate and assess how much you're willing to invest for your launch when it comes to gaining market share, when it comes into the quality of the translation, there's going to be an element of obviously localizing and translating your graphic content, your storefront. That's a level of investment. So that's when you sit down, once you have those numbers and weigh them up against the opportunity size of the market, whether then that really literally makes sense for you.
So one question I have for you on that then is, let's imagine you're at a coffee shop with a friend of yours and he says, I just got started on Amazon. I'm selling I got like $2,000 a month going on this product. I'm pretty excited about it. Would you tell him hey, well, have you considered doing that over in the US market? What would that be one of the pieces of advice you'd give to him as a friend?
Absolutely. I think I would personally first, in this specific scenario, how serious is he about this? Is this something that he's just looking to do in, what's the word?
So let's imagine that he's serious. So he's like, I am wickedly serious about this. I've got a full-time job, but I really think that this Amazon thing could become my life. What do I do?
If he's serious about it and he wants to do it, then we dive a little bit deeper, in terms of how much inventory he can support that launch with, how much he can invest with the marketing, because it's moving more towards a pay to play. There's obviously the cost of getting those products over into the US. Then there's a cost of getting those products listed, either through working with an agency or a partner and doing it himself from a time investment standpoint. We need to then assess the marketplace itself and the category. Is it growing? Who are the main players? How much are they spending on their marketing?
So I've had conversations like this at a coffee shop with a friend.
Yeah.
and they happen to be, most of the time we meet friends and it's like I met them at church, or they're not, have friends that are industry specific, like people that have become friends through business, but a lot of times my friends are from a more personal nature, right? Like I've met them through going to a party or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not super common for me to have a friend who has a business need in the category of thing that I do. That's not a super common thing, but it has happened.
Yeah.
In that moment, when they're asking me these questions, there's two things going through my head, like, oh crap, this could be like real dangerous in terms of like preserving the friendship, because we all know how that could go.
Yeah.
But the second thing that goes through my mind is, how can I provide as much value as freaking possible right now in these next 15 minutes for them, and help them feel like they walked away with something tangible they could do, knowing there's no way they're going to have any money to pay me to do any work for them. And frankly, I'm not sure that I want any money to do work for them,
absolutely.
because this guy he's a good friend. So that's my curiosity for you. If he's like, serve, like I want to go figure that out, what would he do on his own to get some inklings of where this could go, so that he can decide like, okay, I'm going to invest there and push in and decide to go hire an agency, or I'm going to try and do it on my own to see if I can get some sales up to the point where I can hire an agency? What would you tell him? Like if he was like, obviously I can't hire you, but like, where do we even start? Like, I get that I need to check the marketplace. I don't even know how to do that. I get that I need to translate this. I don't even know how to do that. Like, are there tools or things that you would recommend to kind of begin that process for a beginner, knowing that many of the listeners are going to say, that sounds too complicated, I'm calling Serve?
There's definitely ways and means. The great thing is, over the years, Amazon are starting to open up their data sources now from Marketplace. So that would be a great place for him to start. Get onto Amazon.com, create a Seller Central account, and start pulling that information and that data. See how that category's grown. See how the searches have grown. Product Opportunity Explorer, search query performance reports, just to get a lay of the land. How does that compare then to what they're doing in the UK? And then if it's 10x, 20x, then that shows that the opportunity is there. Then start speaking to your manufacturers, your suppliers, your vendors. Are they able to support that level of growth potentially?
Can they ship to FBA?
Absolutely.
Over there?
Yeah, totally. And have a look at what the requirements are within each states in the US, because each state will be different. The great thing is, if they do it remotely, say from the UK, and they
working
don't
with like 50 different mini countries over here.
Absolutely, yeah. That in itself creates a complexity. But the great thing is, Amazon are supporting. If there isn't an excess in the US and in a specific state, Amazon then will take care of the collecting the VAT and the taxes, as they call the sales tax, and remitting those to the authorities on your behalf. But making sure that the key thing is, are you able to support it from an inventory standpoint? Because without the inventory and the ability to scale that in your manufacturing, you have no business. You have no business.
Yeah. You see, so at that point, it's like the first question I ask myself is, could you actually get the crap over there? No?
Yeah.
Then you shouldn't be looking into this. Second thing I should be looking at is, and when you said create an Amazon account, so in this situation, he already had a UK account. Mm-hmm. Does he need to go, like, is there a new application he needs to fill out, or what's that look like?
Well, to be fair, now a lot of, again, what I've seen in recent years and more so in recent months, Amazon are now moving to more of a global interconnected platform when it comes to Seller Central, and more so seller than vendor. So within that, if you've got a registered brand with brand registry, you're able to tap in and get that information from Amazon, and not necessarily need a marketplace account within the US or Canada or wherever it may be. There's also as well a new part of the system there that they've actually launched, which allows you to look at the different attributes that are selling on a specific product. So again, that gives you great intelligence as a brand owner and as a product manufacturer, whether the product that you actually have and you've brought to market in your home market, whether that's desirable and whether there's actually scalability in the US. So for instance, we're working with a brand at the moment and they're selling men's trousers, cargo pants, shorts. And we're seeing a slight difference in the way consumers in the UK are purchasing. It's a UK brand. We're launching them into the US. And what consumers and customers on Amazon deem as important from a product standpoint in the US, We're seeing that slight gap, but we're able to tap in through their UK account to pull that information out of an attribute type, length of trousers, waist size, material, zipper closure, style. All of these things are really, really important. So again, going back to your scenario and the example we're talking about, that's a great way to do some product research and whether your product is actually desirable and whether it's going to potentially do well in the US. So finding all this information, gathering all of this information together to get a real understanding of what it looks like in the US from an opportunity standpoint, that's kind of where you start. And then if that makes sense and the actual cost against opportunity ratio works for you within your numbers, then it's about, okay, now we start moving products across. How do we do it? Which carrier are we going to work with? Do we need to create a carrier account? Do we send it by boat? Do we send it by air? Again, that all factors into your profitability analysis on whether it's viable for you as a brand and a product owner to actually launch your product in the US. Invariably, we've seen 99.9% of the non-US marketplace sellers, the opportunity is viable in the US simply because of the size of Amazon. Yes, it's more competitive, but the opportunity is also far greater as well if you can get it right.
Interesting. I love that. So as a new seller just starting out, there is some data that I can get that might be directional enough to help me decide, like, okay, should I go use ChatGPT-4 to just spend the time to go dig into that? I mean, honestly, using AI to ask, like, are there regulations I should be aware of for this category? Opening up a ticket on Amazon to ask some of those questions. I think you could get some basic information to at least get you directionally there. And then if it overwhelms, obviously, that Serve and his team know how to do this inside out, underneath, and backwards. You've done it probably hundreds of times, helping different brands list in multiple marketplaces.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we have brands in the UK, we have brands in mainland Europe who, from the outset, they want us to look after their home markets with a view to launching internationally. Like this brand I've mentioned in the apparel space. There's a brand that we're working with that sells professional art brushes. Again, they're a US native brand. They trade out of the US. 30-year-old brand, started on Amazon about 5 years ago, had great success launching on Amazon.com. But then, they wanted to understand what it looked like in Europe because they've built that brand presence and they have that brand awareness already built in the European marketplaces. But again, it's okay, what do we actually do? We want to sell there, but what do we do? What do we do with translation? What do we do with compliance? What do we do with currency conversion? What do we do with translations? And that's where, working with an agency like ours who understands the US market, understands the European market and other marketplaces around the world, again, from having done it ourselves with our own brand, it allows us to take them through that process in the best possible way and make sure that we're not falling foul of any regulation that we may have overlooked. So, I mean, that's another good example as well with that US brand. And we've managed to scale them in Europe. They launched with another agency in Europe and we took them on in their third year. And from 1 year to the next, we had to go back and rework a lot of the foundational things that weren't quite right. But we've managed to get 1,200% growth year over year in Europe just by doing that. And now we're expanding and launching out more products here for them. So there's opportunity. Yeah.
So next nugget here, and I think our episode has centered around this expansion into other markets. Mm-hmm. What is the number one thing people do wrong when expanding on their own?
Not understanding the complexities and the slight nuances and differences from one Seller Central platform to the other. So, example, if you're selling on .com and you're using the Amazon file upload templates, the ones here in Europe are slightly different and vice versa. We use what we call a browse tree nosed. So we have to look find the category, find the corresponding 5 or 6 digit number that helps Amazon classify the product for browse, and then obviously get that product uploaded on the right template, or potentially just taking their US content, copying and pasting it onto Amazon UK, thinking that it's English and expecting the same outcomes. There's terminology. We both speak English in the US and the UK, but our UK English will be different to certain terminology that's used in the US. Prime example, diaper, nappy, little things like this, because it's a cultural shift and the English here is so different to the US in certain parts. The way customers actually interact on Amazon will be different as well. So like this example, a customer who's looking for a diaper from a US brand selling it on the UK, they won't come in and search for diaper, they'll search for nappy. And unless you understand those nuances and those differences, you're not going to see that level of success that you're having in the US. So we've seen so many brands, having worked in the agency space, where they've launched, many, many brands here in Europe from the US, as an example. And those brands just haven't performed and haven't actually grown. And then they exit. 90% of the brands that they launch or that have launched here in Europe, from the US, they will close within 24 months and go back because of these slight differences. And it's very, very important to understand this. That's the biggest thing that we're seeing. It really is. And then not really understanding how the complexities exist around everything else that allows you to trade here with the currency and everything else that we spoke about.
Interesting. So be aware that there are some complexities in switching from one to the other, and there's an opportunity to dig in there. So this has been fantastic. I always like to end my episodes, tips, tricks, hacks, or books you've come across in the last year that have helped you create nuggets like this for your clients. Anything you'd recommend for tips, tricks, hacks, or books that have helped you up level your ability to find and create nuggets like this for your clients?
I think tips more so than hacks. I don't like the term hacks. It's more of a long thing. As if you're getting involved in Amazon, you've got to take the long view. There's a lot that I'm seeing in the space on LinkedIn around advertising and how looking at it through a different lens will allow you to scale. It's not just about the different ad types. It's not just about the different parts of the funnel. What's very, very important, and we've utilized it for some of our brands and with our own brand, is segmenting your catalog. We kind of get the products on and we think that they're going to sell and we target the right keywords, but you need to segment your catalog and build your ad campaigns and your ad groups around that segmentation. Because then those products, when they're segmented, they'll be grouped in a way that's more towards the customer's use scenario and the niche. I can give you examples, but I think segmenting the catalog before you start looking at the advertising and use the right targets and the right targeting keywords around that segmentation is something that we're seeing is working very well.
Beautiful. It's super, super helpful. Appreciate the tips. Appreciate all of the above. It's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast. If anyone does want to reach out and connect with you, what's the best way to get in touch, Serv?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Serv Chumba. And you can also find our website, ecomniglobal.com. So that's ecomniglobal.com. And there's a contact us form there. Reach out and I'll be happy to speak to you.
Beautiful. Well, I appreciate your time, sir. And I'm looking forward to future conversations.
Absolutely. It's been great, Will. Thank you.